everybody. I am Candace, and this is
Truth and Levity with Jordan too.
Truth and Levity, our podcast, and we are going to show you all the bare grits of who we are. Bear grits. Bear grits. What is that?
Not Bear Grylls, Bear Grits.
Bear grits. So for those of you that know me, this will be normal. For those of you that don't, I apologize ahead of time. And my brother will save this whole podcast.
That's not true at all. Our intention with this podcast is to explore mental health from both sort of the uncomfortable truths that very often we don't voice or give voice to, and then as such keep us disconnected from one another. But then also the levity side of things, right? Not to take ourselves so seriously, to laugh a good bit. Especially at the ridiculous things that our depressions and anxieties and stresses will make us do and think. So we're going to explore all of that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Candace and myself, we are brother and sister. Last name Lally.
Twins.
Although Candace has ditched that name in favor of marriage. So we're going to talk about, just give you a little context here for how this podcast came to be. And really the impetus is about 7 years ago when we lost our father, Ed, to a battle with clinical depression. Culminated in suicide. And for our entire family, it was a great wake-up call to mental health, something that everybody lives with, but certainly our experience up to that point was largely just to not address the uncomfortable aspects of mental health. But we had this impossible lesson before our very eyes, and so it sort of inspired us in very different ways to begin to tackle our own mental health. And so we're going to talk about some of that, and just give you the truth and the levity through and through. And speaking of, we're going to have a word every day, because Candace and I are, as best we can, to keep in line with that idea of just authenticity and truth, good, bad, and ugly. We're just going to come into these podcasts with a word that will then inform whatever the podcast becomes. We're not going to prepare a bunch of stuff. We're not going to, as best we can, we're not going to try to give you some perfect version of ourselves. What you see is what you're going to get. So our word for today is truth. And so in that vein, Candace is going to talk a little bit now about how she's been struggling with her ring light and her sunglasses and her hat.
Here's the thing. I was going to start this podcast off like this. I think I look pretty tough. I think this is how it should. You probably will all probably enjoy this a little bit more if I was like this. But last night my brother had me looking up some videos of our dad, and I found these videos, and some are very funny, and some just like really struck where I deeply gut desired to be back in that moment with him one more time. So I ugly, like from my soul, cried, and all the grief spilled out, and then it just was so cathartic. It felt really good. But being in our family, sometimes when you cry a lot, you get these giant bags under your eyes. So I was like, great, we have a podcast tomorrow, our very first one, and I'm gonna look like balloon face, because my face will swell, my eyes will swell, but I'm not gonna hide behind my glasses. This is what you see is what you get. You know, I cried my eyes out last night. It was a very beautiful, tough, amazing, major struggle thing for me to go through last night. And I remember I called my brother and I left him a voicemail. And I'm not sure he understood a word I said, because it was like basically but I deeply needed to talk to them, like just to kind of soothe my soul a little bit. Like, you know, it was beautiful to see that, but it was also beautiful to see that and desire to be in that moment one more time, just to see the joy in my dad's face. And just to kind of give you a concept of what this specific video that got me was, we were watching my brother perform, and there was this certain song that would come on. My dad would just sing it to everybody in the room, like every single person in that room. And he did, and I have it on video, and it's like a treasure that we have now, because we would talk about it, but we didn't realize how special and amazing it was. And he didn't care if he knew you or if he didn't know you. He was going to sing to you and point you out, and with his whole heart sing this song. and the words of the song were very fitting to what we're looking for. And it was almost like he gave us a gift of this video. And so, yeah.
So if you're not aware, which hopefully you're listening to this and you're not aware, I'm a musician. Candace is a musician, both in different bands for a number of years. Candace was in a band, I guess technically still is in a band called Another Lincoln. I'm currently in a band called The Big Infinite. And back in the day, back before my father passed away, my band wasn't called Big Infinite. It was called Fiction 20 Down. And so my dad would come out to the shows, the bar gigs that we'd play in the area. And, he was just the number one fan. And so he would always be singing along. But when you go through tragedy, losing someone to suicide, a lot of times the focus steers towards the tragedy of it all, or his struggle with his mental health and those kind of things. But my dad was just such a joyful person when not navigating depression. He just was it was the definition of supportive and loving. And so this video that Candace stumbled upon last night exemplified that. We were covering a song by a band called Dispatch. The song is called The General. There's a lyric and it goes, "Go now, you are forgiven." So it's very much about forgiveness. And so my dad is just singing in this video, singing his heart out along with me at the time, just singing, "Go now, you are forgiven. Go now, you are forgiven." And it was such a poignant sort of message to see, especially, I mean, goodness, when you talk about the truth, I think one of the reasons we struggle with the truth is because our fear of other people's judgment and our fear of, not meeting certain expectations or for other people or for ourselves. And a lot of it, as you face that truth, something that goes hand in hand with that is forgiveness. And so this was exemplified last night. It was such a beautiful video. Thank you for finding that, Cam. What a gift.
I definitely was led to that video because it was a sea of videos that I've taken in my time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it led to many, many tears, And Jordan even said, "We can postpone this a week." And I was like, "Nope, I'm going to bring it." So.
And we're doing, we have this mental health program, my band and I, and the Ed Lally Foundation, a mental health awareness nonprofit. So we have this video program that we've done for schools, and we're talking with a director producer who wants us to bring a little bit more footage of my father into this sort of music documentary film we've created. And so that's what I had Candace on the hunt for, footage of my dad, because back before everybody had amazing cameras on every cell phone, Candace was the one at the shows with her fancy photographer camera who would take videos, and is really the only person that captured so many memories from those years. So thank you for that. I mean, beyond that video, all of those years are just captured by pictures and video from you.
And that, I mean, we do have beautiful pictures in our mind, but I think to take you back to that second.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't you for a minute just snap back and you were right in that room?
Oh him? Yeah.
And then he not only that, he's looking in the camera and like specifically singing to the viewer. I mean, me at the time, but he was performing, but man, it was just, it cut. I mean, it in a good way, but it got.
You know why I think we can receive that is because both you and I have chosen, since Dad passed away, in our own sometimes similar and sometimes different ways, we've chosen to go there, like quote unquote go there, which means we and we'll still continue to do this, but we sift the heaviness, a lot of the anger, a lot of the guilt, a lot of that stuff, so that we're now in a place where we can sort of open ourselves up to receive the real essence of what Dad was and our relationship with him was. I think a lot of people want to skip that fundamental step of something that's always there when you lose somebody, whatever the circumstances. You just kind of want to remember the good times, but if you can feel your way through the loss, then you could really experience those good times again. And like that way, I mean, it really was amazing to watch that video and just to feel him singing to you, and it didn't have to cut through a lot of crap, because I remember making the choice after Dad passed away of sort of on a regular basis to read through all of his text messages. And I would read through, and they started before he was depressed, a couple of years, and I would just sort of read through, and then they would get into when he started getting depressed and his perspective shifted, and you could tell his just worldview and on himself, and everything was just dark. And I would do that over and over again. until I lost my cell phone and it exploded, but that's another story. Um, uh, and I found that just to be so healing. I don't know what drew me to that at the time, but I don't know. It's all set me up now to be able to watch that video and just be like, there he is singing to me. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
It's like you're not thinking about all the stuff around. I mean, you're looking at him, you know. And usually, I mean, when people pass away, you don't really think about their death. You know, you think about their life, and you know, because of the way Dad passed, sometimes the hyper focus can be on how he passed away, but that's not who he was. Who, you know, his essence is. I mean, not even like a percentage of that was him, and it just kind of reminded me of that. You know, that's Dad right there, not that shell that carried the depression at the end. You know.
That when we started a nonprofit in my dad's name, Ed Lally Foundation, and when we started it back before we even knew what we were doing, I remember like the reason that I wanted to start it, or that I felt like naming a mental health organization after my dad, why that made sense was because he's almost like the poster child for, I think, the depression and anxiety that's really pervasive in our world, meaning nobody saw that side of him. Nobody knew that. He always wore the happiness out there on his sleeve and hid that from the rest of the world. But that's why I think it's such a wonderful example, because that's much like me, my own anxieties and depressions. Until Dad passed away, I hid that from everybody. And in fact, I preoccupied my life hiding it from everybody. You know, much like you want to wear your sunglasses and
I still will. I mean, I still will. I still hide it. If I'm feeling low and somebody says to me, "How are you?" Great. I'm always going to be great, because I'm so worried to make somebody else feel low, you know? And sometimes I take on other people's feelings. You know, if somebody's crying, you're not going to be alone. I'll cry right with you. Like, it just, you know, I can sense an energy, but yeah, your first inclination is not to really show the truth. I mean, the truth is I'm having a rough day, and that should be just as normal as I'm having a great day. It shouldn't bring somebody down so low by speaking your truth, you know?
Actually, I think it gives them permission, if you can put yourself in a space where you're willing on some level to answer them honestly. It gives other people permission to feel that way. Or like, you know, if everybody's around like, how you doing? Great. Awesome. Like, that's what social media is. Everybody's doing awesome. And then so we feel this disconnect from everybody because, well, everybody else is doing awesome and I feel like shit. So, man, that sucks. But in reality, if somebody were to say, hey, Ken, how you doing? You'd be like, you know, I'm not feeling that good today. That might actually make me feel better, because either A, I can help you out. Maybe I can lend you some support, or B, it's just, well, you know, I haven't really been feeling that good myself either. Let's talk about that. You can connect on like a real level. It's just a simple question.
Right. And it doesn't mean like if I say, yeah, I'm having a rough day, that I have to take on that rough day persona. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm having a rough day, but I can still be happy. But have you ever noticed too, like somebody, you know, takes their own life and they say, I would have never known. Like, they were such a happy person. How many times you've heard that maybe if you just kind of normalize the fact that all days aren't great days, you know, and that's okay. That maybe it would open up a door for somebody to say, you know, I'm struggling and I need some help, you know, instead of having to be so brave every day of your life, because some days just getting out of bed is such a great achievement, you know, because I've had days where, you know, I've stayed in bed and I haven't wanted to get up, you know, especially after Dad passed away. There was probably months where I was, you know, I wasn't a good mom. But I did get out of bed, you know, and I should have celebrated that fact that I got out of bed today. Might not have been what I feel like I should be, you know, and my kids are great. You know, they didn't suffer from it, but I talk about it. I talk about it now and say, you know, listen, I had a hard time. I was really sad. My feelings made me really sad. And if you ever feel sad like that, you know, talk to me about it, you know, but it wasn't something I could talk about, you know,
That's such a gift to give your kiddos that kind of permission.
You know?
What you just said, that like idea that you should celebrate getting out of bed, that's such a great point, because really we hold these expectations of what we should do every day, or how we should look to everybody, and we don't celebrate the small wins, and
Right.
then we just maintain this expectation of what we should be doing, and then the divide grows so great between what we're supposed to be doing and how we really feel that it becomes unbearable. Whereas if we just answered that question honestly, how you doing? I'm not doing too good today.
That's
then
good.
that expectation would fall a little bit. We don't have to live up to the standard. We can be human, and there'd be like this. Your inner world and outer world would be a little bit more aligned rather than that just chasm between the two of what you're trying to project to people and really how you really feel. I hope in some small way this podcast could affect a little bit of change, and maybe somebody answers that question, how you doing, just a little bit more honestly, and you feel a sense. I mean, it's not going to happen every time, but my experience has been the more honest I am, the more connected I feel, because people can then share their struggles with me as well, because I've been vulnerable, or they can like lend me some support, which sometimes helps other people feel good. I never did that. I never told anybody that I was struggling, and so in effect I had this
I've never
wall
done that.
between.
Really? I mean that's something I have to work on.
Yeah.
I can sit here and say that's such a great idea, but I need to practice what I'm talking about, like be honest, and that's hard. That's hard. And I'm one of those people that want to make sure everybody else is okay. Like, I don't know if something, mom was like that a little bit, she wanted to make sure everybody was okay in the room. Everybody, if we had a party, everybody was fed, everybody had drinks, everybody, just as a small example, but I want to make sure everybody's okay first, and it's hard to be like, I'm not okay.
Well, it's exhausting. Well, it doesn't have to be like all or nothing. Yeah, you can still take care of people, but also be like, hey, can somebody take care of me here? You gotta hold. It's like you gotta hold your
right.
Because then some people, you say, how you doing? Oh, and they'll tell you everything, right? How horrible their life is. That's the other extreme.
I'm definitely a magnet for that, which is fine. I'm like, that's something about me makes somebody feel comfortable, so I celebrate that. Like, okay, that's good. I made that person feel better about themselves today. But yeah, that's hard too.
You got to find like this middle
balance.
Road of like, you got to hold your healing in one hand and also your vulnerability in the other. So I can tell you, like, things aren't too hot for me today, but I'm not like, I'm not asking for a pity party, right? I'm just being honest. Like, it's such a fine line that you really want to walk, because you can either totally repress it, I'm always doing great, or you can totally indulge it, everything's horrible, the sky's falling. And I'm sure we both know both types of people.
I don't want to feed that beast, I don't want to feed that monster that will take over and make me miserable for the entire day, but I mean, today I woke up and I was a little bit, but I tell you what, put on Phil Collins. Randomly Phil Collins, against all odds. I suggest it highly, and just belt it out. And the music comes in, and then the drums crash in, and you're like, this is a feel-good song, even though it's probably a really sad song. I think it's like their love is leaving or something, but I mean, it felt good. I sang my heart out, now I'm coughing probably from that. But and then Susudio was on after. That's a tangent. I'm going on. But I'm saying, just, put something on that's going to kind of lighten your mood a little bit. It's not going to make you forget why you're bummed, but it might take you out of the glooms, like, feeling a little bit, I couldn't pinpoint why I felt like that. I mean, it was a torrential downpour. It was storming. It was awful out, Maybe I was worried about my puff eyes, and I was like, oh, look, I'll show you. Let me show you the picture I sent them. I don't know if anybody can see that. I sent them that picture of me, another truth bomb. You see it? I got eye patches on last night. That's how freaked out I was about speaking to everybody looking like this. But, this first episode is truth. So I have to embrace that and give you the truth.
Thank you for bringing the truth.
Studio.
Oh, that's what I was going to. Thank you for the Phil Collins reminder. Music is so powerful, right?
Right.
Well, just the other day, Friday night, somebody messaged me, an artist who I wasn't familiar with. It's her name's, I might be mispronouncing it, but Lauren Daigle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you familiar with her? I wasn't.
She messaged you?
No. She didn't message me. But hey, Lauren, feel free to reach out.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're doing some networking.
I mean, she's incredible. I mean, that's some uplifting music. Like, ooh.
I had never heard of her, and somebody was asking me to potentially have Big Infinite do a cover of her or a remix of her for this album. And so I just went to her page and listened, and my mind was immediately, my heart was immediately drawn to this song called Rebel Heart. And I listened to it. And I mean, 30 seconds in, I started crying, man. And it was just so cathartic and so powerful. And I think that goes back to that earlier point, which years ago I didn't have access to that emotion. I don't even know if I would have listened to the song all the way through, but like, because I sifted through a lot of stuff, I'm like ready to be vulnerable and receive that message. But it was so cathartic to hear the song. I would recommend that. Check it out, Ken. Rebel
I'm
Heart.
to check it out. I mean, I should probably do it now while my face is still puffy instead of repuffing. But this was yesterday?
This was Friday night. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna be like, what's up with your eyes not being puffy and looking movie stars?
I don't know if that happens to me. When I think they get really red. Megan, my wife Megan, her eyes do the same thing.
It's like, you know, and then people will be like, oh, what's wrong? You know, and it'll be like 2 days later. I'm like, I'm really fine. It's allergies. No, I mean, they will, like, the bags will puff up where I could take them to the store and they will give me 10 cents for each bag that I bring in.
It took me a second. I thought you were going for something real sincere. And well, that's a perfect transition there, Candace. So we want to end our each episode of Truth and Levity with a little bit of levity. So one of the pathways Candace and I have taken to healing is perhaps unexpected improv comedy. And so something that I was led to years ago as I practiced meditation for a couple of years after my dad passed away, and I wanted to improve my mental health. Meditation, you know, has and continues to let me heal in ways I never imagined possible. But at the time, I was still wrestling with social anxiety that had dominated my life. So I wanted to take my practice of meditation and being present on the road. And so I went to this class, the Baltimore Improv Group, and found that it in so many ways was very similar to meditation, in that it's all about being present, but doing so in a group setting. So I ended up taking improv for a year. During that time frame, Candace had visited. Candace lives in Florida. I'm in Maryland. And Candace had visited, and I took her to an improv class. She loved it, and then went back to Florida and continued studying for another year down there. And so Candace and I are going to end these episodes with just a quick improv game, just because, you know, we imagine some of these conversations might get kind of dark. So we want to make sure we're always buttoning up with a little bit of levity. So we're going to do a simple improv game called 5 Things. We're going to try to frame it under the guise of mental health, but, you know, we'll be loose with that guideline. And so it's very simple. Candace has no idea what I'm going to say. I ask her to name 5 things, and off the top of her head, she has to name them. As a teacher used to tell me, we move at the speed of fun, which means we're trying to get Candace just to say it without overthinking it too much. And then we clap along, and then she'll give me 5 things, and then we'll wrap things up with some wise words of wisdom. Right. So, Candace.
Yes.
5 things that, and again, I just want to caution, let me say this again. These may or may not be true. Candace is just going to say these off the top of her head.
I mean, that just comes out of my brain. So
listen with understanding ears.
I hope it's appropriate.
5 things that are at the root of your anxiety. Go.
Cars.
1.
Children.
2.
Bags.
3.
Toenails.
4.
Orangutans.
5. These are 5 things. Beautiful. Orangutan anxiety is pervasive. I've heard. Yeah.
I think I must have a struggle. Meanwhile, I got a giraffe on my head. I could have been like giraffes. You know, there's no orangutans in my room, but it's fun to say. Orangutans.
Toenails. I think that was another of your anxieties.
I do need a pedicure.
Toenail clippings could provide anxiety. I see them sometime on the bathroom road. I don't know where they came from.
Where? In the back. Oh. Yeah. No. Right. No, yeah. I don't know. I do need a pedicure, like, desperately. Summer's probably going to come soon. Now I'm analyzing my 5 things.
Well, it's okay. You've given anybody else that has orangutan anxiety permission to feel that way.
We'll talk about it, because I need to find out why. I mean, I love monkeys. They're close. You know, like I do. I do love monkeys. I mean, I have a little sloth guy, like, chilling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right, Jordan. Mine might not be as serious, but I want to know if you could change into any animal to help people, what would it be? Go.
Koala.
1.
Orangutan.
2.
Ant.
3.
Dog.
4.
Tiger?
5. Woo! These are 5 things.
These are 5 things. Oh, tiger. I have the tiger.
That's our song. My dad sends that song.
So,
to
yes.
me,
Eye of the
and
tiger.
I send it to everybody.
All right, so we're going to end with one last improv game here. We're going to call it Words of Wisdom. So Candace and I are just going to sort of complete a wise saying, one word at a time, having no idea what the other person's going to say. And that is what we'll end this episode of Truth and Levity with. Candace, do you want to start us off?
Okay. There's
always
a
orange
diamond
in
your
pocket.
There's always an orange diamond in your pocket.
There's your words of wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the Truth and Levity podcast.
Orangutans could be orange.
They could be in your pocket too. Watch out.
And they could find your diamonds for you. All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us for our first podcast. This is Truth and
Levity.
Woo!
Back up on the hustle.
Bye.
In a cold beer waiting for